So the first range of motion rehabilitation exercise I used was the passive arm extension. And with that, I just took the patient's arm and moved it over her head as far as we could. Then I had her do that actively to see how far she could get. And then the second range of motion rehabilitation exercise we did was just a baseball toss. With the first progression in that, we used a closed kinetic chain where she just stood still and used only her arm. Then the progression of that was opening up the kinetic chain to where she could take a step and throw like a normal baseball throw. Then the first neuromuscular control we did was I called it the cradle toss. The patient caught it and kind of swung her arm like a pendulum and tossed it back. And the progression of that was just using a heavier ball. Then the second neuromuscular control exercise we did was the ball drop, where I stood over the patient's injured arm and dropped a ball into her arm or into her hand, and she caught the ball and she held her arm at a 90-degree angle. Then the progression of that was she just tossed the ball back up. The first strength rehabilitation exercise we did was what we called the draw the sword. So she went from the opposite hip and extended the dumbbell as far as she could diagonally. And then the progression of that was she just used a heavier dumbbell. Then the second strength exercise we called the pouring soda, where she started at her dominant hip, lifted the dumbbell out until she couldn't anymore, and it kind of looked like she was just pouring soda out. And then the progression of that was she just used a heavier dumbbell.